If you're selling a business, you need to remember that it's not solely about the business's worth, what its value is, or the asking price, what you want for it. It's also about who is likely to be the buyer for your business. Now, there are two types of buyers as a rule. The first is financial, and the second is strategic. But there's also a third group. It's kind of like a subgroup, and that's private equity groups, or PEGs. Now, in the future, we're going to be doing a deep dive into each, but in today's video, I want to talk about each one of them individually, give you an overview, and how you might approach them. So first, financials. As the name suggests, the financial buyer is most interested in the financial performance of the business. If you've been following our series on What's My Business Worth, you know that the first question a business buyer, a financial buyer, is going to ask is, how much will this business put in my pocket? You'll also know that the second question is going to be what the rate of return is going to be. How much do they have to pay to get to that business? And what's the rate of return that's represented by their final earnings? Very important, those two questions. So that's a financial buyer. A strategic buyer is less interested in the financials, but more interested in synergy. Now, financials mean something. They mean something to any buyer, but they aren't at the top of the list of any strategic buyer. A strategic buyer is more interested in what the acquisition of your business will do for their existing business. For example, if you have an HVAC contracting business that you'd like to sell, a strategic buyer could be a similar business in the next county. And that potential buyer might want to expand into the county you're in, and they would have two ways of doing so. They could open up a facility near you, and over the next 5-10 years, grow organically until they have a handsome share of the market. Alternatively, they could acquire your business. Now, a third group, of course, private equity groups. They can be either financial or strategic. If a private equity group was going to make a financial acquisition, they would look for a business that they could buy for a reasonable price, but one that had the potential of substantial growth. If, for instance, they put in their own management team, or they changed operations in some manner, shape, or form. And they would be able to see that in 3, 4, 5, 7 years, they could sell that business and make a handsome profit. That would be a financial acquisition by a PEG. But a strategic acquisition would be a little bit different. An example would be, let's say that the PEG, which generally own more than one business, they have a portfolio. Let's say that this particular PEG owns a plumbing supply house outside of Chicago. And a strategic acquisition would be the PEG acquiring one or more plumbing contractors. Those plumbing contractors, once they were brought in-house, would then all buy from the PEG's plumbing supply house, thereby increasing the value of the main business in their portfolio, the plumbing supply house. Each of the smaller businesses would be able to grow no less speedily than they were in the past. But the key thing would be for the PEG to be able to bolt on these additional acquisitions to a business that they already own, thereby increasing the size and value of that existing business. So financial buyers, strategic buyers, and PEGs, private equity groups, who fall in both categories, are all legitimate buyers for your business. But your business is probably more keyed to one group than another. And that will be the topic of our next video, how to identify the right type of buyer for your particular business and how to approach them. That will be coming up next week. So if you found this to be helpful, hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss next week's video or any of our next upcoming videos. In the meantime, check the description below where we list quite a few resources for valuing, pricing, and finding out more information on how to sell your business. So I will see you next week in our next video.